Which camera should I talk to? I guess I should talk to that one. Hi, welcome to the first episode of Scary World Pod, where we talk about discourse and basically just talk about anything that I find interesting, because it's my show and not yours. Today we're here with Ace Dispensa. Oh, sorry. Is this my camera? Hold on. Is this my camera?
Are you doing a was it Joan Rivers or something?
No.
Who is that?
This is Judy Garland.
This is Judy Garland. Oh, you're doing a Judy Garland impression?
Is this my camera?
Yeah, you gotta go higher.
Somewhere over the rainbow. I'm a soprano, so
You gotta go higher with this. This is my camera.
That's Liza. Well, that's Liza. Is this my camera? Oh.
Oh, yeah. They kind of sound a little bit similar sometimes. Later Judy Garland.
Later Judy Garland's more like, Liza, darling, please. Is this my camera? Is that my camera?
Yes.
Camera A, camera B, camera A, camera B. C. All right, so we gotta get down to business. Let me just drink some of this booch.
All right.
Some booch.
They call it. I like that. I like calling it.
You like booch?
I like that booch.
Come on, booch. Let's go.
It's kind of good. It has a punch to it. Booch. It's great.
It's cool. It's new. It's sexy. It's full of fermentation.
No, it's great.
God.
Good for your
Damn it.
digestive tract.
Oh, so good for every part of you. The main objective of my podcast is talking about taboo topics that maybe we might not necessarily have access to people who are in those cultures or subcultures. However, I have really incredible friends who are very willing to be open and talk about, probably the hard topics that a lot of people don't know how to ask questions or even how to be respectful in asking questions about things that are very so to say, sensitive topics, I would call it.
Right.
So, I guess let's just start with a little bit about you personally, and
So I'm a filmmaker. I'm an actor. I just kind of do everything, very similar to how you do it. I mean, I'll work on camera, but a lot of times I work in lighting. So I'll either mostly key grip, but then I'll also gaff and. But I've always been, I think I got into filmmaking through wanting to be an actor when I was really, really young. I have a really distinct memory from when I was probably 4 or 5, being with my mom and sitting in the parking lot of this drugstore, which called Rock Bottom. I kid you not. That was a real chain that used to exist in New York.
Fucking SpongeBob?
Oh my God. Yeah. No, Rock Bottom. And apparently it was a rock bottom price, but it didn't work. That slogan didn't work. The name didn't work well. Yeah. It's ugh. But anyway, yeah, I remember her explaining to me in that parking lot for the first time the concept of movies, that the people I saw on TV were actors, and that's why Seymour Krelborn is also Wayne Zielinski in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I'm like, wait, why is it the same? Why is Seymour in this movie too? And she was like, no, it's because... Yeah. And then the second she explained it to me, she blew my mind. Yeah. And I was like, I want to do that. I have to do that with the rest of my life.
So would you necessarily describe yourself as a normal person who lives a very normal life, I would suppose?
No.
Okay, but at its core, you don't find yourself to be an evil deviant person or, with...
Deviant? I mean...
Terrible,
I think I'm a horrible person. I mean, Jesus Christ.
But realistically.
I left my car. I parked in front of someone's driveway. They're never going to get out of there right now. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm fine. No, I mean, I don't think so. I don't think I'm a devious person. Yeah. Bad. I just don't. I'm a freelancer, and my life is always chaotic. So I wouldn't say I'm normal, but definitely not bad.
So the reason that I have you on the pod is because you're willing to talk about the lifestyle that you lead, and you have an interest in kink, and you have an interest in polyamory and that sort of community that's around it. I'm personally not a part of it, so I don't know much. So this is a very raw conversation with somebody that knows much more than I do, and I don't have any backstory or much backstory, I guess, that I'm throwing into the ring right now. So just clearing the air that this is not a setup, this is not scripted.
You could have fooled me.
This is raw as almonds.
I thought we were going to talk about the election.
Yeah.
All right. No.
Yeah. I mean, we might mention something political here and there. All right. So how did you discover that, like, the way you view romantic situations is maybe different than what maybe television showed you, or what was considered ordinary, I guess, for us growing up, like in the 90s and early 2000s?
Right. So I think even going back, if you go back really far, there's always those moments, I feel everyone has, when they're super young and they kind of start discovering their sexuality. It's like you're like really, really little, and like you start to catch yourself looking at certain people or wanting to see certain things, like seeing like a woman just even in their underwear on TV or something like that. I was like, ooh, like it was just automatically like a thing. Sure. So that's always kind of been a thing. But there's always kind of been sort of a fascination with certain scenarios and like certain dynamics that also used to kind of invoke those same feelings. And I think it goes back really, really young in my childhood, like just kind of being fascinated with the idea of like, someone like, I guess like being disciplined or things like, or seeing other people get like disciplined, I guess, in like a weird way. Like it was, and it's like nothing, you couldn't really do much obviously when you're that little. But like, and I don't have any crazy stories like that, like having a real sexual experience at a really young age. But I do remember having those kinds of feelings early on. But I will say the time I first realized that I had a very different view than most people, was when I got older and people started to date, and I started to notice people having different double standards. So more so in high school and elementary school. I mean, not elementary school, sorry, middle school. I started noticing things with some of my guy friends, but also with some of the women. And I just kind of, I would notice that people would get very jealous very easily. And not to say I wouldn't get jealous too or anything like that, but I automatically started questioning how useless some of these
constructs, kind of.
Yeah, the constructs were like, I would just be like, one of the things I will say is a lot of guys would be very, very protective of girls that were either their relatives, like their mom. If you made fun of someone's mom, or you say, oh, your mom had sex with so-and-so, it would just be like, it would be like this big, horrible thing, like, you don't talk about my sister. And if there was a sister and someone like found them attractive, even just the idea of someone mentioning would be like, don't you fucking think about it. Don't think about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, what, you're gonna like have sex with your sister? Like, what's the deal with this? This idea.
Some people are like that though. That's like,
I mean, there could be some of that going on, but it used to be kind of a universal thing. It's like not everyone wants to.
Don't look at my women. Don't talk to my women, and don't even think about my women.
Yeah. So I was like, why?
Any woman in my life. Period.
But then on top of that, though, there would always be those same guys would be trying to sleep with some girl that they found hot, and they would have a dad or they'd have another older brother that would be like doing the same thing to them. And whenever they were trying to get laid or trying to just hang out with a girl, they would roll their eyes like, oh fuck, her fucking dad is like on my ass. And it was just, you just kind of, I would just be like, yeah, but like this, you do that too. You do the exact same thing. Like why is it? You know what I mean? Like, why would you feel this way? So I used to be very open with, I have like a cousin who's the same age as me. She would date people. I never once even had the thought in my head, like, I have to keep her from having sex with anybody, because then you would have had sex with my cousin. Like, I never thought that ever, But a lot of people thought that way. And that was one of the earliest things that kind of started making me question a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the demonization of like dudes and like, but now there's also like a little bit of a demonization toward females, I feel like. That like, women are these like Jezebel seductresses, and like the script is kind of flipped a little bit on some of it, but then you get it on both sides too. Like, girls are like, men don't fucking care about you, and they're never gonna care about you. Most men don't even have empathy, they say. And then they say, and here's the evidence to back it up, that men don't have empathy. And it's like, there is a little bit of that where I agree in a way, because like I've seen, I guess like in a way I watched my dad kind of grow more empathy toward like me and my sister's femininity, like as we've gotten older. Mm-hmm. Because when he's younger, he's like, oh, like I know how some men are, and like, he wasn't like, but like my mom was very, very protective of me and my sister.
Right.
Growing up, because she's like, I know how men are, and I hate most of them. Like, honestly, like, if you ever, like, thought you met a misandrist in your life, no. My mother in the early 2000s was, like, misandry up the wazoo.
Oh, my God.
Well, mostly because, like, guys are really mean to her. My mom's a little on the, like, more masculine kind of side a bit, so I'm sure she got plenty of flack for never wearing lipstick and, you know, being all, you know, not looking like Courtney Cox or some shit, so.
Right.
But as I've gotten older, like I don't think I was ever really raised super feminine or like raised to be that, but my dad has gained definitely a lot more empathy for like, oh gosh, like guys really are just like super nasty to girls, and I've seen like my dad kind of change the way he approaches women and you know, and the way he talks to his like male friends, you know, who are mostly divorced. The divorced friends, like they don't know how to talk to women and they're kind of nasty and like whatever, you know, and it's like totally like subconscious.
Yeah, you know what, and I'll say that kind of reminds me of another continuum I've noticed with different generations, and I sometimes get a little bit worried that it might be changing with younger generations, but I've noticed that generations seem to be not only getting better, but I also noticed people from older generations would change their views for younger and younger generations. So, for example, my grandmother, who was born in 1927, and when she was still alive, she had her values for herself, right? And it was a very different world. So women had way less rights, you know, even legally.
Of course.
And then then she had her kids, and they were boomers. You know, they're all born in the 50s, and one is born in the 60s. Is my dad, and they would. They had a little bit more freedom in general, but you know, there was still this like Catholic sort of upbringing that she raised them with. She was very devout. She'd go all the time. With them, they didn't go as much as adults. You know, they would maybe go only sometimes. And then with me, she was much more open to a lot of stuff. Like, okay, we're just living in a different time. Like, older people seem, at least in my experience, more. They would kind of change their values with the times, kind of like how your dad does. I sort of noticed that with a lot of people, where it's like, you know what? Yeah, with my kids, if they're older, I was a little bit harder with don't cry and all that stuff. That was a big one, not crying.
Yeah.
I feel like my generation kids used to cry more often. Yeah. You know, maybe not when they got a little bit.
I found that men cry way more now, and then but that's why they like. They're like, oh, like women are fucking terrible, and like they did this to me, they made me cry, you know, because I'm a big strong man, and you know how hard it is to make a big strong man cry, and it's like, well, you know, maybe you're just not as big and strong as you fucking thought you were. Yeah. So maybe you should just give up the act and start thinking about people like they're real people, and stop gendering everybody so heavily in your whole fucking life.
I totally agree.
You know, there's such a like. I feel like so much emphasis on gender these days. Yeah. Just like I feel like every conversation that I'm in, you know, not on the pod talking like, you know, discourse or you know, not when I'm discoursing with other people, but I just feel like even in casual conversation, I'm very often just like gendered. Yeah. Really heavily. Okay. Like all the time. And not in an offensive way. But you know,
it's always there.
I'm always made aware that I'm a female in like every conversation that I have. Sometimes, you know, until they get to like know me, and I'm like, okay, well, you know, like yeah, we have really decent conversation together when you don't usually get along with women. Why do you suppose that is? I don't know. You know, I'm throwing out a name here, like. Okay, like Caroline is a very straight woman. Okay. I'm not like the other girls, but what's the one thing that's not like the other?
Yeah.
I'm queer.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, I know.
It's a very different. No, I mean.
And like explaining that to people, it's so like intangible. I feel like in a way. I don't know. Do you have the same experience? Kind of in a similar way, or no. I don't know how you identify.
No, I think I do identify as male. I feel when I was growing up, I very much had a sense of just being male. I didn't buy all of it to the point that people make about gender being a spectrum. Everyone embraces that to some degree. So not everyone does all the things that are considered manly, and there are things that were just considered man things that I just didn't do or I didn't like, but I was always very hard-headed about it. So, for instance, sports, I cannot follow sports at all. I'm just one of these people.
I don't know how.
I didn't like them. I didn't like watching superhero cartoons when I was a kid. Like a lot of kids like the Spider-Man, the X-Men cartoons. When I was a kid, I only liked Animaniacs and Tiny Toon Adventures and Hysteria. If anyone remembers that show, probably not. It's a very obscure.
I don't remember Hysteria, but
yeah. But I liked shows like that. But I could somehow watching some of the superhero shows until they were really adult. Like when I started watching Spawn, that was okay, now this is some serious shit.
Yeah.
Batman animated series was sometimes.
Yeah.
But to that, so there was always certain things that were considered boy things. Boy cartoons. It was okay. I don't know. Wasn't that into all the things that boys were into. And then as I got older, I distinctly remember when I used to be a janitor at one point. Yeah. And I remember it was just all guy talk, ultimate blue collar guy talk. And I remember one time there was a guy, it was it had been snowing that whole year. And it was one day where the snow was melting, but it was really warm out. You could wear short sleeves. And I was just, it's beautiful. And I hated I had to go into work. And I go in, and we're outside, and one of the guys turns to the other guys and goes I love this weather. And then I turn to him yeah, it's beautiful out, It's finally you start to smell the earth. It's amazing. It's beautiful. And the guy just turns and goes don't give me any of that sunny day crap. Nah, will you give me this? Nah, I'm talking about all the hot bitches that are out here. These mommies that come over. I'm all right, listen. Just the idea you can't even, admit that you like a sunny day. Yeah. It's the first spring day of the year. You can't even admit that. I'm
men must be miserable at all times. Yeah. And they can't smile. Yeah. Manly men don't smile, you know. They actually, if you know that they have teeth at all, they've already fucked up.
No, guys, don't look at me. Don't look at my teeth. I have to brush them. But I don't have any teeth. Don't fucking look at me.
Yeah. The only people that see my teeth is my fucking wife. Yeah. I don't know how I'm gonna meet one of those, but somehow one day they're gonna pop out of the ether.
And that's another thing. There's this weird thing that men kind of deal with, where you're taught to suppress your emotions, but you're also taught. You have to show how. Oh, I hit my microphone.
Oh, it's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
But you have to talk about how much you do love sex, but you also can't like it too much.
Oh yeah.
And it's not just the dynamic of I can't show that I have feelings beyond sexual ones. You really can't show that you like the sexual part of it.
Oh yeah, and God forbid a woman takes care of you too, because it's fucking gay.
Yeah, that's gay.
It's gay if a girl takes care of you. You take care of yourself.
Pussy.
Yeah, you fucking.
Oh.
I'm gonna have to bleep that beep.
Yeah, no, but then people used to say it all the time. When I was growing up, everyone used to say that all the time. Everything was
it's the it's the responsibility of the man to make sure both of you are satisfied, because it's all on the man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, women don't know any better. They can't know any better.
And then the thing is, so for a lot of them though, what happens
if you let a woman take the reins, what else will you let her do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of that fear, but there's also just the idea of being in the way guys would talk about sex is another huge thing that always used to bother me.
Yeah.
The way guys would talk about sex would always be they would talk about it they had to show off, but they also couldn't. They would always be in this dance of not acting like they liked it too much. That's why I always hated talking about sex with other men. I just hated doing it. It would just be yo, I fucked this bitch. They would just say that. That's how they would say it. And they would say yo, I fucked this bitch
and it's this bitch is your girlfriend of 5 years, and you're referring to her as
even if it wasn't.
Bitch,
even if it's
real.
not. Let's say it is someone you just picked up at a nightclub, right? Sure. It's always they gotta they have to sort of act like they didn't like it too much. Yeah. Because even liking the sex that they're bragging about is also a sign of weakness. It's really weird. Yeah. It's a very subconscious dance that a lot of people do, and it's why I hated talking.
Well, it's because it's vulnerable, and God forbid a guy gets way too vulnerable, and and surrenders, and has some fucking fun once in a while.
And, that's exactly what it is. It's vulnerability.
I can't even count like now in my adult life, not teenager. There's a lot of times I have to tell my partner or whatever, relax. You got to relax into it, and then at one point, they'll come back to Jesus and be like, I'm the man, right? And I'm like, of course, darling.
Oh my God. I'm the man, right?
Of course, darling. I respect
didn't
our
even peg
balance,
them.
darling. No, they
Jesus
don't like.
Christ.
They don't like that. But you could have fooled me.
And they still have to remind you that
Yeah,
you know I'm the man, right?
Yeah, and it's like, why you overwhelmed by like my massive penis? Because
that's so wild. That's pretty wild. I mean, because I'm not on that side of having a sexual encounter. I guess you know.
Yeah. No, and they think I have to relax. I'm like, oh baby, I'm surrendered.
Yeah.
I've reached, like, I actually brag about this sometimes. Like, I think I've reached this level of like sexual nirvana at the ripe age, the tail end of 28 years old. I've reached it.
Okay.
Like spiritually,
Why is that?
Power-wise, I don't know if anyone's else felt this before. Maybe I'm in a psychosis. Maybe I'm having a hypomanic episode. I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
But I feel like I've reached this like level of being like so confident, so comfortable in this way that like I feel like only some people can dream to get to.
Okay.
Like it just makes things like that's the compliment I've been getting recently, is that I'm so confident.
Okay, no, that's
so
great,
confident.
though.
But that makes me think, I'm like, are other people not confident when they get in the sack? Is that like being in your late 20s, going on your 30s, how can you still be,
I mean,
like, unconfident? Like, I guess, do we have a pillow princess epidemic? Is this a problem?
it could be. it could be. No, I mean, I think, no, I mean, listen, I think people can have a lack of confidence when they're going to have sex specifically for a multitude of reasons, right? I think sometimes people might, especially when especially when they're younger, but it can still travel into adulthood for a multitude of reasons, where you just kind of, you're about to actually do the thing because you're probably hyping it up in your head, and then you just are like, oh shit, what if I'm not good enough or whatever. I think it's different for women though, because women, or for femme-presenting people, anyone who has a vagina, basically.
Sure.
So I shouldn't say femme-presenting people. That's technically incorrect.
Anyone with a vagina.
Anyone with a vagina, pretty much. It might be, and you tell me if I'm wrong about this, but it might be different because if you're someone with a penis, it's a lot of times the sex that you're having, your pleasure like relies on you being able to perform. So you have to have a certain level of, your body has to be functioning just the right way. And some people can be very tumultuous. Like certain things have to line up, So like I know there was a time where, like, you'd have to, if I was too exhausted, just the idea of it standing up just couldn't happen.
Yeah.
And you can work on all these things, and everyone's body is very different. You have to find yourself and figure out what makes you the most, comfortable. But that's also, a lot of that does come down to the confidence. It's like the more confident you feel, the more you could just be present and be in the moment. And unfortunately, a lot of times, physical things like that, for someone who's, got a dick, it could just be like, that could be more, that can actually inhibit your ability to just live in the moment. You're like, I gotta perform. I have to I don't want to be a selfish lover. So I gotta think about it. And then you can end up just kind of like not being able to do it because you're thinking about it too much. But then if you don't think about it, nothing happens either. So you just end up in this like mental loop. But then if you're by yourself, it's no problem. So it definitely has to do with nerves.
I could see, I think women can definitely fake it easier.
Yes.
So maybe there's a bit of performance comfort in that.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. I'm going to do this.
Go ahead.
My lips are so dry.
Would you fuck me? I'd fuck me.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, you were saying about women,
Yeah. So, I feel like women can fake it a lot better, I guess. I mean, obviously, if it gets to a point where it's like, excruciating and kind of like turns into torture, I think some girls maybe just like, that's when they pillow princess, when they're really not actually into it. Mm-hmm. And guys just like think that they're like great, like really good in the sack if they're just like,
I got you.
Unless they're a power bottom. Like there is a very stark difference between a pillow princess and a power bottom.
That is true. Absolutely.
Let's make that abundantly clear.
Absolutely. That is definitely
discourse of sorts. You to go to like parties and things and like I guess they're called sex parties. Like what do you call that?
Yeah, like they're all different. There's different scenes, I guess, that are out there. I definitely don't, I haven't gone to haven't necessarily been running around with every scene that's out there, but there is definitely, I would categorize them maybe in two different classes. There's BDSM parties.
Sure.
And even in these scenes, there's micro scenes within these. But so I can't really generalize them all, but also for time's sake, I'm just going to sort of generalize them. But a lot of times the kink parties, they can run a certain gamut where there's no sex allowed at all, but it is clearly a sexual experience, and people are mostly playing. There could be a lot of stuff where you can't be completely naked. You can't touch people's genitals in any way. So like there can be parties like that, but they are usually dungeons and spaces where you're getting on, like, you have people getting on St. Andrew's crosses and getting flogged, and people getting spanked on spanking benches, things like that.
Yeah.
And so those are some of those play parties that I've been to at least a couple of those. And then there's a lot of ones like that will be, you can have sex there, but it's not the number one thing that you can do. But there's usually like a level. There's sometimes like you can have sex, but you can't have condoms, and you have to make sure that you're not on. You can't put your bare butts on furniture and stuff like that. So no bare bodies on the furniture. So there are there's a certain level there, and those could be a little bit wider in terms of what activities can happen there, or at least what is generally socially accepted in those spaces. And there's even more where it's just, sometimes you can be in a getaway of a place like that. I've definitely done a 4-day getaway at like a play party, like at a hotel. They do like these hotel takeovers. And that you kind of you're kind of in the hotel, and you're just there for the most part, and no one can come in or unless they're part of this. So you're kind of walking around, and you can just dress however you want the whole time. And so I kind of learned something, that a lot of those spaces could be just sometimes a place where someone can get away and just be a different person for a couple of days, and it's actually kind of nice. So you'll see somebody who's, you could tell is questioning their gender expression, but they don't really get to do it all the time, and then they could just dress exactly the way they want for a couple of days, and it's really not even all that sexual for them. They're just there, and they're meeting people that are similar, and so a lot of those spaces mean a lot more to people than just sex, for sure. But then on the other side, there would be more of a sex scene. So there are clubs and places where you are looking for community, but there is very much a heavy emphasis on sex, where it is, we're here to like have sex and fuck, and there are always rules and things. You can't do there's usually common spaces where you can't sit down completely naked, but there's also, or you can, but usually they have like those wee pads, like those puppy pads everywhere. So like you're supposed to make sure that you're using those if you're going to do something in a certain common area.
And no squirting on the furniture.
No squirting on the furniture. Or at least you try not to, those kinds of spaces. Yeah. And so, I mean, they're nice though. And most of these places, they always have rules. So, there's a lot of, usually these places will, in both of these communities, there's always a house safe word where like, and you have to read the rules before you get there. No matter what space or club you're going to, you always have to read the rules. What's the dress code? Sometimes you're not supposed to dress a certain way. A lot of places don't want you to wear jeans. It's like no jeans, no street clothes.
You know what? Understandable. I get it.
Oh, listen, and I've been places where people do break the rules, and I get it. I get why they don't. They have to do this. Yeah. I've been to places where it's just like like they don't enforce the rules, and then you have a bunch of creepy dudes that just walked in off the street, and they're just being weird, trying to watch everybody, and in a way that's like not in a way that's spectating, but still creepy. Yeah, it's hard to really put your finger on it, but creepy.
They're not part of what the initial experience was supposed to be.
Yeah, there's just something, because you can spectate. There's people who spectate all the time, and it's fine. But there are some people who spectate, and you just feel the energy, and it's off.
Yeah.
And I can't explain why. Maybe you just you get to read them, people. Yeah. And you just know, you are a stranger, and I don't like you. That's it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do have stories about weird people being weird at parties like that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Anyone that's like, I guess, really funny?
I did.
One story.
Okay, fine. Oh, sure. Yeah, I was one time at a club with my primary partner, who she's more of a dom, and she was playing with me, but they had queening benches at this one. Do you know what those are?
What's the queening bench?
It's like an apple box, but with a hole in it so someone can sit on your face.
Oh, so like what you kind of like get like your pussy steamed.
Yeah,
or whatever.
basically you get your pussy steamed.
But
your butt steamed. You could do that too.
Yeah, you could do a butt steam or whatever, but this is for pleasure.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be and you put your head in, and then you could the person could sit on there. But the box is a certain size, and they have like a strap so that you can kind of lift your head more. It's like just the right position.
Oh, that's kind of nice. Okay.
Yeah, because everyone's head's different, so they kind of make it so you can adjust it to lift your head more or less. And it was kind of a funny situation because I was just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But also she was playing with, she was hitting me with a flogger on my legs and stuff like that and stuff. But I was also simultaneously trying to adjust this thing so my head is in there, and I'm doing this adjustment. Yeah. And then people would come in and spectate. And it was kind of weird. Well, it wasn't that weird. It was fine. But then, and she's just hitting me. She's dressed up like I'm dressed up.
Yeah, she's taking care of business.
Yeah. But eventually she's going to get on the queening bench and we're gonna actually play. And then so there's there was this point where there was a guy who comes in to watch, and he's sitting and he's like really close watching, like spectating, not from across the room like most people are. He's sitting there really, really close, and he's just watching, and I could see him out of the corner of my eye, and my head's almost all the way in a box. I could see this person, so he's way uncomfortably close. It's like mad
disrespectful,
and it's just. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know how you don't read the room and you don't feel uncomfortable doing this. And eventually I could tell she's like stalling. Now she's playing with me, but she's mostly stalling.
She knows, yeah.
Because she doesn't want him to be watching. Because now it's like she wants to play and do this actually sexual thing, but she just doesn't want this guy to see her because it just feels weird. This guy's being way too creepy and weird. So eventually she just flat out asks him, she goes, "Sorry, do you mind just giving us some space, please?" She puts her hand out, and he goes, "Oh, okay." And he walks away, far away.
Yeah.
And then we did it. But I felt the energy. And I'm kind of in a really vulnerable position because my head's strapped to this thing.
No, and I'm glad that she kind of took care of you and stuff in that moment. So that just shows in that community like trust and consent is so important in that space.
Yeah, there's a lot. You have to really understand. I hate that we have to even have this conversation over and over again, but people really don't understand space.
Here we are, you know. I mean, there's a reason why, I'm like okay, we can have respectful conversations about kink and other saucy kind of topics and things, because honestly it really lends a lot to the conversation of reinforcing consent, even in especially actually in more vulnerable spaces. Consent and trust is so valued and required.
Yeah, I actually think a lot of the stuff that the folks that run these events and who are major players, if you want to call them that, in these spaces, one thing that they do, I feel like everyone, any random vanilla, just vanilla person could benefit from these places because it's sex education on steroids. These people are very, very, very much you will get kicked out if you step over these boundaries.
Have you watched somebody get kicked out like that before?
No, I've never seen anything bad happen like that. No, I've never really experienced it because people tend to follow these rules.
Right.
And that one situation was a very freak occurrence. I don't see that very often.
Yeah.
I was in one. I did go to one place where the rules weren't being enforced very much, and people were being weird. Too many people were being weird, and I didn't like it. And we wound up just leaving because they weren't enforcing it. But that's the point. No one got kicked out because they weren't enforcing anything.
And I guess also there's a point where it's you don't get too offended or something if a mishap. Not a very offensive mishap, but a dude getting too close, and you tell him hey, you're too close, man. You gotta go away.
Totally.
And they comply.
I mean, he's listening. He is listening to what we asked him to do, which is fine.
Because also, I assume there's also a lot of neurodivergence in the community as well. So having that
have you looked at me?
The divergence is diverging.
I'm diverged. I don't know where the trail is. I'm walking through the woods over here. I'm gonna freeze to death.
Bro, not the woods. Jesus Christ. Yeah, the kink witch of the woods is coming through. All right. The bits aside, but yeah. So also, do you find that it's like a very risky kind of lifestyle? Like when you, like, I know things are a little bit less risky now, and you know, there's a lot of ways like PrEP and a lot of different tools that people can use to like keep themselves you know, sexually safe, health-wise safe, also mentally safe as well in these communities. But maybe like in your earlier interactions, like were you ever worried about like the risk taking of it all, or like was that ever a worry?
I've always been a bit of a hypochondriac, so I've always kind of been, it's always been in the back of my mind about like, oh, what if I get diseases? But the way I've always looked at it is most of the scariest diseases. So, okay, HIV is probably the worst. It's the worst thing you could possibly get, because it's lifelong. You can't get rid of it. And you can never get rid of it, and it's life-altering. So that is the worst thing you can get. And I think when I first started just being a sexually active adult, because I didn't always roll in specific spaces like this. I just was someone who was sexually active, and I would find people who were kinky, but I would just find them on Tinder or just going out on dates. You know, right. I would, you know, yeah. So like, yeah, I would just kind of, that's how I would do it. But I wouldn't, and I didn't have all this language at the time, and I wish I did. But whatever, here we are. But I know that these communities did exist, and so. But yeah, my early years when it comes to you know, diseases, I used to be somewhat concerned about HIV, but I always kind of looked at it as a thing of like, look, this is a personal preference, way of thinking, but sure. I was just like, I want to enjoy these experiences. I can't spend my entire life not experiencing these things that I watch people doing in porn and stuff like that.
And clearly want to experience, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, because the thing is, like, if I really wanted to be safe, I would just never get to experience anything. So I should just do it. Most of the things you can get are things that are, there's either vaccines for, or they're either inconsequential, or they're things that are consequential, but we have cures, like, we have treatments for. Like,
sure.
If you get, what's the
like clap is like a shot in the ass.
Yeah, clap is a shot in the ass. You get, there's usually antibiotics make most things go away, including syphilis, which is deadly. Well, was deadly until we have a very our first isn't like penicillin just makes it go away?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's amoxicillin, but it's like one of the Cillins.
The Cillins.
It's one of the oldest antibiotics, and it still works against it. It's like you just take it and it's gone.
Yeah, like so we're not like Victorian children. Like it was kind of crazy, like, you know, for like 1700s, like France to be as like
people would lose their
as
noses and parts of their face.
Oh yeah.
It was a huge thing. Yeah,
skin eating pussy is crazy.
Oh my god. Yeah, I do worry about back then. I will say, with the invention of PrEP though, that changes a lot of the game, because PrEP is something
not sponsored, by the way.
Yeah, we're not sponsoring. Yeah, they're not sponsoring us, unfortunately, but they do. But
you could if you want to.
Yeah, please, Descovy, people, Truvada. I need money. Please. So yeah, no, I mean they are like very effective apparently. I think Truvada was the first. Well, I'm trying to remember if Truvada is the company or the.
I think it's like maybe the brand.
It might be the brand. I'm not sure, but the first PrEP that was popular. It was definitely either Truvada. It was either Truvada is either the company name or that's the actual drug itself. But that was something that people get, and it was very effective. It had some issues with your kidneys. It could affect your kidneys, and they do screen your kidneys to make sure it's not damaging them or anything like that. Sure. Most people it doesn't. It's just if you already had like a bunch of infections in your kidneys and they're actually weakened, will it actually affect them? But now they have a new one called Descovy that is on the market that you can get, and that one has way less side effects. They still screen you for all the same things, but there's very little effect. And it's apparently more than 99% effective. So like if you do have sex with somebody with it, not that I suggest, you know, you be that risky always, but I mean, you can, supposedly you could do a lot of stuff, and it's very unlikely you'll get it.
Way
like less than 1%.
Been.
Yeah. So if it's like that,
that's amazing.
If it is like that, it's like, okay, now it's you're worried about getting a disease that is genuinely rare at this point. Especially if the whole population was on that. Of course, not everyone's going to be on that, and you still have to be somewhat careful. So I don't know. I mean, everything's just about discretion. I just think if you're going to do things and if you're going to take risks, just know what the risks are and just protect yourself. I mean, it's very important to protect yourself from things and
others.
Yeah, and of course,
yeah.
Definitely, and protect others. I think it's very immoral for you to just not disclose that you're positive for something like HIV, no matter what the case is. Like, absolutely.
That's like rude. I mean,
it's rude.
Well, not just that, but it's also like, you don't know like what type of like chronic diseases people have, and like like more people are more susceptible than others, and like there's just certain reasons for the way that certain people have to be.
Right.
Like, personally, just so it doesn't, whatever, for contrast, like I chose at a point to be like, well, I don't think I should really partake in having so many partners, mostly just due to like health. Like I fucking went buck wild one time when I was younger.
Okay.
For a very short period of time, and like it ended up in me getting like BV, bacterial vaginosis, and then getting fucking yeast infection, and then my immune system was so low that I freaking got oh god, what was it called? Like mono.
Oh, okay.
I got freaking mononucleosis.
Right.
From just like my immune system being like low so much from dealing with like the other stuff, because I guess I wasn't paying attention at the health of like my partners. I wasn't being choosy enough.
Right.
So you live and you learn.
Yeah.
But from that moment I was like, you know what, maybe it's not worth me and just like the way that my body seems to want to be, to not have so many partners, especially if I like don't have the mental discernment and the choosiness of being like, you know what, I think you're healthy enough, maybe that guy's not healthy enough, maybe that chick is a little smelly, I might not want to go near her. But I guess like joining like parties and stuff, like people are very on top. Do you find like most of those people are very on top of their health? And you would I mean, you'd hope so. I think so. Yeah, people are pretty good about that. I think also, unfortunately, you're not allowed to have phones in a lot of those places, so you can't. Well, yeah, of course.
Have your results on your phone necessarily, but people do sometimes print out their results. Like, okay, I just got tested recently.
Yeah, to prove it. Like,
and that's really good. And I know people who do who are talent, they get talent tested. You could choose to try to do that because they test for more things.
Yeah.
So like people who do adult performing, they are constantly getting tested all the time. Like every week, absolutely. I think it's just constant. And and the thing is, in those communities, the people who perform, the like diseases are extremely rare. And people would think that everyone's getting diseases all the time because they're always fucking each other. It's like, no, actually, they're way less than the actual population. The crux of all of this is the fact that when you have spaces that are more promiscuous, people having these conversations, and they're not completely held back from it, there's actually more safety, and people are more educated, and it comes back to the fact we don't have really good sex education in America. And the thing is, when people do something, the thing is, a lot of times, us people out here, a lot of people in the regular population will make these assumptions, and then also will notice that when people do finally start doing something, when they haven't done anything like that before, like a bunch of maybe straight people just start fucking each other randomly, like at a party, and it is like a big orgy, all of a sudden everyone gets like a bunch of diseases because those people were kind of holding themselves back and like lying to their significant others to get more sex because they want more sex, but they don't want to cheat, and like they don't know what's the rules are, and they're doing things that are very risky, and no one's really disclosing stuff. They don't have this language of protocol, how to deal with stuff, and so they're not on top, and they're not on top of their sexual health.
Right.
And so you'll sometimes see stuff like that, pop up, or maybe not so much a impromptu orgy or anything like that, kind of an example. But if it happens in the regular world for people who aren't doing it all the time, it becomes kind of you see people get diseases. Or sometimes when people do, they go out and they they start having sex or they cheat or they first open up their relationship, they start getting diseases. That's because maybe the other person also is just not used
like
to
they've been with like one or two people, for extended periods of time. They just,
right.
When you're with one person, you don't really continue to learn more or, put in that effort to kind of like expand your own personal knowledge. And
right, yeah.
Because like why would you have to if you're with one person? Like
no, exactly.
But I think also like people that are in relationships also should, I think, learn more as well. Because like even as you age, you get older, like there's different requirements and different things you have to like learn about people and their needs and also like people who have different things wrong with them as they like get older and stuff. So
right,
it's like having courtesy in certain ways that maybe you never thought of to have when you were younger, like it's like all things that exist.
Absolutely, yeah. You do look at things differently if you educate yourself.
Okay. Yeah. All right, well, there we go. There's the topic of education. As far as like morals and like social norms and things, like have you ever thought of like now, I'm not endorsing morality. I'm culturally Jewish. I'm not necessarily like overly spiritually religious at this point in my life. So this isn't really me talking from my point of view. Right. However, it still begs the question of like have you ever considered a moral high ground, and like was there ever like shame involved in maybe not doing this beforehand, or maybe you've never felt that type of shame before? Or,
right.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's definitely shame in so many areas. Some of it is just stuff. Like sometimes I think when it comes to my own personal kinks, shame definitely plays a part in it. But I think it also kind of plays a part in it with most people's kinks. I think when people get spanked, there's something that feels shameful about it. But that's why I think that's why we do it. I think we do it similar for the same reason we like to go on free fall rides, or we like to skydive, or even just go on roller coasters. You're simulating these really extreme scenarios, but in a controlled setting.
Yeah.
I kind of look at kink like that, where it's like, you're simulating the feeling of falling, but you'll be okay. And that's what a lot of this stuff is. Sometimes people will do, consensual, non-consent stuff, and someone watching who doesn't want to do that can see that and think that's, oh my God, why would you want to simulate something like that? And it's like, but if it's in a controlled setting, sometimes it's actually therapeutic for a person to experience something that could be traumatic for somebody, but in a very controlled setting where you're going to be okay on the other end.
Right. Or maybe even reliving a trauma in a sense where they end up victorious, or the controller of the experience themselves. Yeah. That could be maybe, I would assume, healing.
That's what I hear a lot of people mentioning, is that they feel like they're taking control over a moment. But I don't necessarily have that specific experience, so I can't really speak to it, but I've heard that's the way you put that, I think that's what you were saying too, and that's what I've heard a lot of. Yeah, it's like taking control of something that happened where they weren't in control.
Yeah, or they're like they're choosing it for themselves, so it allows them to feel the pleasure of feeling that they've taken over that narrative, and it's
Yeah, I mean, and there's always shame in the real world, so I think people like to play with the shame aspect of things, Yeah.
So it's like part of it, or also like the morals or whatever of here, these are your Christian morals. And
yeah, a lot of religious trauma is in those communities where it's like, okay, now I'm doing the opposite of what I was doing my whole life. I think sometimes people are just overcorrecting things, right? There's people who they lived in a very Christian, let's say very Christian household where they couldn't do even play with themselves, let alone actually have sex with anybody. Now they're just going to be extra slutty or something like that. And then maybe but you might see something, one or the other. Some people might just be really promiscuous and do a lot of stuff. But also you may see people wanting to indulge in having someone kind of, tell them what to do and restrict them. That might be a way of dealing with the same religious trauma. It might be that.
But by the time this comes out, I'm pretty sure everybody will have seen Baby Girl.
Oh,
that new film. Oh yeah, I know it just came out, but
is it, you liked it?
You should see it. I'm gonna spoil it, and I'm gonna put that there's spoilers for it. So basically, the whole thing is like girls just want to have puppy play. basically.
Oh, okay,
so it's kind of
okay.
like, but not. There's no like kink anything, like iconography or anything in it. Like there's no flogs, there's no like masks or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's like she learns the power of like rekindling her marriage through like
Puppy play?
cheating on her husband with a dude that like introduces her to puppy play,
Oh,
basically.
wow. That's interesting. I should watch this.
It's kind of good. I feel like
Definitely.
you'd really enjoy it. There'll be like good discourse, especially like I feel like in the community it would definitely.
There's
gonna be some talk.
Yeah. There's that movie with Maggie Gyllenhaal. I can't remember the name right now. I'm drawing a blank, but she does. It's like from 2002, but she ends up in some law office, and then he's like spanks her, and she loves it. But it really goes into a lot of that psychology of wanting to,
the power play of it all.
Yeah, I'll probably remember it right when the cameras turn off. I'll be like,
I'll put a graphic where I find it down below or something.
Absolutely, yeah. Do it. It's down here. It's somewhere on the other side of the frame. Or that side, I don't know.
Yeah, my iPhone wide. Hello.
But yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of that stuff, and I'll say when it comes to shame, you asked me something. There was another part to that question.
Oh, it was like a deviance in ethics I wrote down. But yeah, ethics. It's like, do you think it's like do people call you like a deviant or something, or but also like the ethics of it? Like, do you feel bad? Do other people feel bad? Like, yeah.
Okay, so there is a lot of ethics that
like
I find
feelings.
behind being non-monogamous that I think I've changed since I started really embracing being monogamous. I think before I found a partner that I feel close to, and we're not going to be monogamous. And I started really dabbling in this sort of world. I started actually developing more of an appreciation for people who are monogamous. I used to be very like, because monogamy is kind of the cultural standard.
It's the default.
It's the default, and it's forced on people. I still to this day believe, this is a personal thing, but there is some science that it's still theoretical and hypothetical, but I'm sorry.
Just leave it.
It's still hypothetical, but it's still like there's a lot of research that points to us as a species not being monogamous. We're supposed to look for more partners. That's why people are so bad at doing monogamy. It is forced on us as a species by our society, and people have a hard time keeping it in their pants because they get bored of having sex with only one person forever and ever and ever,
right? And
not one person can fill every desire. So,
sure.
So that's that side, and I've always I used to have a little bit more of I would turn my nose down at monogamy and people who try to force it on, because people very much do not like to hear that other people are not practicing monogamy. They get very defensive about it, like, no, this is the way it's supposed to be.
Almost like a jealousy, even.
It's like I think it's the one thing they have to protect. I think it's because jealousy is a powerful emotion, and jealousy is kind of what winds up governing why we act monogamous and believe in it as an idea, even if we're being bad, even if we're not succeeding at it as an individual, we'll still defend it because we don't like the idea of our partner going out and doing something with somebody else. And so the idea of shattering this reality, this is the way things are, will make people really get upset, very much so, almost universally. Yeah. But I've seen this change a lot more in recent years, but that used to be kind of the way people would respond.
Yeah.
Even people I knew who were cheating nonstop all the time, they would still defend the concept of monogamy. Yeah. So my whole thing was, I used to always turn my nose up at it, like, you people have no self-awareness, and blah, 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 and this is stupid, and I'm better than you. I in the back of my head, I mean, like, I would have a little bit of, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but there was a little bit of me that's like, I'm awakened and enlightened, and I'll never get jealous because I'm so confident. But you know what, like, as I've gotten more into it, I actually have more of an appreciation for why someone doesn't want to open up a relationship. There are so many things that can go wrong. You can still do it completely unethically. You could be non-monogamous unethically. You could bring someone into a relationship that's dangerous. That's another huge thing, and now it becomes the other person's problem. You put your partner at risk. You put their safety in question. So there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. And communication is key, but it also, I appreciate that it's not for everybody now. When I was younger, I thought everyone was just lying to themselves. Now I'm like, and that might be true for a lot of people. Like, I do think there's a lot of it's indoctrination for us, And I do think that if you're doing monogamy, there's a lot of rules that you should know that people tend to only know in these circles and spaces because of how bad education is. But I do think that I do appreciate why people, are still like, look, I get it, but I don't want to open it up. I really love this one person. I don't want to be with anybody else. And it just isn't for me. Like, I appreciate it a lot more.
Would you say that, like, some people maybe would, like, go through phases? Yeah. Like maybe they're, like, kind of, like, fluid in the way that they kind of, like, I guess romantically fluid? Is that what we would call it?
Absolutely, fluid? Or sexually fluid. Like,
sexually
just kind of
fluid in a way.
They're just doing, I mean, just like with if you're bisexual, sometimes you people who are bisexual go through phases where they're only with one, gender.
One gender for a while, and then they indulge in the other, and, whatever they want to do.
Keep it together, just whatever you want, or, just it's the way you feel, and that's it. So, yeah, no, absolutely. But it's definitely fluidity there.
Yeah. Very groovy. I mean, how? So well, because that kind of bridges into the topic of, like, is it kind of like swingers? Is swingers like a completely different, like the 1960s swingers, like Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice?
Oh my God!
Have you seen that flick?
No. I think you're just making up these names.
No.
That's great.
No, that's an old movie from 1969 about these two couples, and they're exploring being a swinger. And they're exploring their sexuality, and it's Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice is the name of the film.
There is. I will say, when it comes to swingers, I just the names Carol,
Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, 1969. Yeah.
Okay, so there are, without yucking anyone's yum or criticizing any groups, because there's definitely little scenes in groups and communities that not every community gets along with. There's certain people. I don't really subscribe to any specific group, let's say. Like, I'm not like, I'm part of this community or that community. There is sort of a like a demographic that tends to be more, that would call themselves swingers more. It's a very specific kind of demographic, and and it's some people don't like that. It's not really a problem, but it's usually just it tends to be more cisgendered people, and maybe more middle class.
Yeah.
That will be
definitely queer exclusive, I suppose.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, sometimes they could be also open. Again, everything's a spectrum, but it's a very particular sort of scene. And they may not, the people who are purely BDSM might not be into that scene, and vice versa. They may those folks might not want to be in a place where people are getting flogged and hit and yelling, and that could also be triggering for somebody, somebody, if you, if you don't like the sound of someone screaming and they're like, that could be a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's, there could be triggering things with that. So we're going to go on to, like, the discoursey parts of it, as if we haven't been discoursing this whole time.
Right.
But the discourse portion of this is more like,
warm in here.
Is it hot?
God, you're turning up the heat lamps on me.
No, maybe you're just falling in love with me.
Cori, please.
I know. Oh, God.
I'm married. I'm not married, but
I'm not married either. Yeah.
Oh my God, you're not married?
Don't tell my wife at home.
Don't tell my wife. This isn't going on the YouTube, is it? What are these cameras doing here? I thought this was the pre-show banter this whole time.
Oh, did you know this is for porn?
Oh, wait. Oh.
Yeah.
No, you got a sponsorship?
I tricked you. I tricked you into a porn.
See, this is the lesson one, unethical. You're supposed to disclose. All right.
Okay.
All right. What's the discourse?
We gotta put our bits behind here. Okay. So, this is a good bridge. So, lack of impulse control.
Oh my God, this is a perfect one. First of all, whatever you just did, don't do that anymore.
Shut the fuck up. I'm gonna keep doing whatever.
No, I feel like. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, it's people who have lack of impulse control, but I think no. I definitely.
Do you think like it derives of impulse control, or if something like safe spaces kind of for this sort of thing didn't exist, do you think you would experience a lack of impulse control
from myself?
Yeah, or do you think that's more of an immaturity thing? Like, what's your view on that?
No, I think if anything, I have too much impulse control in my life in general. I definitely went through a long period of time where I would not take risks and do things, and I've actually been more trying to get over a lot of that because I feel like there's things I should have experienced in my life that I didn't. So for myself personally, no. And so because I do think I do have a good sense of impulse control. I don't think that I personally suffer from that. I think that I have, but I don't think there's any kind of, I don't think there's any sort of prevailing like lack of impulse control in any of these communities specifically. I think, just because I think these the rules that people set up are usually really strong and people hold each other accountable a lot. So I don't think there really is. But I can't speak for every individual. It could be somebody who slips through the cracks and just does something bad. But yeah, no. I mean, I think impulse control is important. I don't know. I kind of wish I could be a little more spontaneous than I already am. Yeah. But
it's yeah. God forbid you have a healthy view on humanity and human existence.
No, but like you don't want to like constantly be questioning what you're doing all the time. Like sometimes I catch myself just questioning, is this okay? Can I be doing what I'm doing right now? Like and it can get to a point where it's like, all right, let's just come on, let's play already.
Yeah. We're gonna go into the Gen Z of it all in this moment.
Okay.
Do you think that the more recent like flourishing of these communities is brought on by like too many Instagram baddies? do you think that there's like
Wait, what?
Okay, so this is like the discourse that's on like TikTok and stuff right now. So
okay.
So there's been an argument. Okay.
Too old. Okay.
Okay. Well, let me explain it to you, old man.
Okay.
So the discourse has been that a lot of guys, mainly men, cis men, are indulging in non-monogamous lifestyles, not necessarily safe or unsafe, with parties and clubs or something, but they want to experience like strict non-monogamy and will not have it any other way. Non-considering other people's feelings or romantics or whatever. And people are blaming it on too many Instagram baddies. like men were not meant to see this many hot, airbrushed women that are accessible IRL.
Is this a real thing? Is this a real discourse?
This didn't come from nowhere.
People are saying this online?
People are saying.
I don't know.
People are saying.
Here's the thing. I feel like, it could be. No, I think.
Are you exposed to the Instagram baddies?
I am, but I don't think it changes anything. I think these communities are probably more body positive, if anything. So there's like you'll see a lot more regular looking humans walking around in a lot of these spaces. It's not just supermodels. Yeah. And you're judged for having a little extra here or something. It's usually.
So would you say it's like actually a more like body positive, realistic
absolutely,
space,
yeah.
Generally?
That's another thing to the point I was making before. Remember, that's another thing in those spaces, not just dressing the way you want, but also just being able to expose, just live comfortably and not be judged for being plus sized or being, being short or too tall, whatever the case may be. It's very much body positive. And the thing is, I've always been of the mindset that bodies, like somebody is into everybody at some point. People will have a preference for someone who's physically bigger and then someone who's physically smaller.
Yeah, they go through eras.
Yeah, when in the 2000s, when I was in high school, the beauty standards. Well, there were a couple. First of all, even the beauty standards were they were sort of fractured. There was like in hip hop, there was still a lot of emphasis on big booties. Just like right now, that's like a major beauty standard.
BBL.
But back then, it wasn't. It was like there was just big booties, and then there was and then on the other side of it, there would be like supermodels, but I've also never known any man, even back then, that actually thought that that body type was desirable. Yeah. And then not to knock women for being tall and thin either.
Surely.
But it's just there used to be a lot of emphasis. Girls were starving themselves and binging and purging a lot at that time, and would hate themselves and want to keep their hair straight and would be razor thin. And if they weren't a zero, it was the worst thing in the world. Yeah. And I'm like, this really was never nobody was actually specifically attracted to that. It was a beauty standard that was brought on by almost nothing in the actual zeitgeist. So, and again, not to knock super thin women, please. Do not cancel me. Don't.
It's discourse. It's discourse.
It's just discourse. It's just my opinion.
I
just think these horrible thoughts.
Yeah, and you know what? Why don't you make up an opinion of your own?
Yeah.
Why can't you have a brain? Huh?
But like I always
the scarecrow even had more brains than you did, and he complained about having none.
Right.
Period.
I like the no, but when I was really young, I remember there was like the girl that I had a huge crush on when I was growing up. She was like much whiter than the beauty standards on television were, but
she was thick.
She was very thick. I think beauty standards of today would be more accurate to how she was shaped. Sure. I thought she was gorgeous and sexy, but like that was, I was always like, yeah, but like even if you think you don't like a certain body type, then you'll meet somebody and you're like, oh, but this person's really attractive still. So actually, I do like someone who's like whatever, maybe super thin, who's not like that girl is.
All of a sudden, having a personality becomes sexy.
Becomes sexy, Absolutely.
You mean women can have personalities?
Yeah. It turns out we've done the research, we've crunched the numbers, and we think that women can have personalities.
Wow, is that groundbreaking?
We're not sure, but what we're seeing.
That's groundbreaking.
Yes. Just gonna eat my.
Can you imagine if I just took like a whole chunk bite out of this, like a fucking?
I eat paper all the time. God. Tim Robinson bit.
That's so stupid.
We're gonna eat the receipt.
Oh, motherfucker.
No, the caffeine. But yeah, no. I mean, when it comes to if it's bad, okay. So also the thing is, beauty standards have always existed. Sure. There's always been different beauty standards. So there's always been in every era. There's always been some sort of ideal body standard or beauty standard that has been held up as like this is the beauty standard.
This is what you should look like. This is what you got to be. And
that's always been a thing.
And if you're not, then you're fucking ugly, and you should go hide under a rock.
Because you know what, the women who are supposedly the hot women today, like on Instagram, it's usually bigger butts, very busty. Yeah. And like and those are the Instagram.
I don't know. It's getting
ladies.
skinny. It's getting skinnier again.
I haven't seen that on my
it's getting
feed, but
skinty.
It could
I don't know.
But the thing is, 20 years ago, it was the opposite. Like, and that was considered ugly, But just then that reversed because we criticized those beauty standards, and then we created a new beauty standard. We'll criticize this one, and we'll do another one. It's gonna be a whole thing. Remember the Gap? That was
do
a
it
thing.
all over again.
Girls wanted the Gap.
The thigh gap.
That was like girls were like taping their thighs. I'm like,
it's
why do you need that? And it was only girls who were into that. It was just something online. It just kind of made it a thing. I don't know if it's still a thing, but.
I mean, it kind of is in a way, but it's like, there had to be like a whole like talk with these girls of like, hey, if you have like hips that are like not wide set, maybe you're just not built to have a thigh gap. And you know what? That's fucking okay.
That's fine.
And you know what? Actually, like at certain ages, like I think like I've been like even more fit than I am right now. I've probably only been able to achieve a thigh gap now at 28 years old.
Oh.
Because of, puberty differences.
Okay.
So it's like you can't even like there's a lot of people that can't even have a thigh gap, hereditarily for, at every single age that they exist.
Right.
So it's like, like look at your hereditary. Like, does your mom have a thigh gap? No, then maybe you're just not predisposed to have that shit.
Yeah.
And that's fucking
and also,
okay.
Like, who needs to have it? And listen, no shade if you have a thigh gap, that's great.
Also, why do you want a thigh gap? And you know what, guys, men and women alike, like
don't seem to care. That's another thing. One thing to keep in mind.
Why the fuck would they care? When you got your legs spread, where's the thigh gap?
Exactly.
When
your legs are spread, everyone has a thigh gap.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you,
they wear you like a crown. Sometimes it's a tighter fit. It's better.
The important thing to remember is that if you think it doesn't matter on other people, most people think it doesn't matter about you.
Period.
They just don't care.
Period. I think that's a great place to end off.
Absolutely.
We're all kings and queens.
I was gonna talk about the like molecular structure of kink.
No.
It's this theory I'm working on. No. All right. No, we're done. We're done.
We're done. We're finito.
Get out of here.
Finito. Over. All right. Bye, everybody. Loves ya.
Ciao.